Every night at Romano's Italian Bistro, the last customers to sit down never make it to dessert. Their wine glasses are still full, their meals half-eaten, but the chairs are empty. The waiter always finds the same thing: unpaid checks and personal belongings left behind like they just vanished into thin air. But what Detective Sarah Chen was about to discover would make her question everything she thought she knew about reality itself. Detective Sarah Chen had seen a lot of weird cases in her 15 years on the force, but this one was keeping her awake at night. 6 couples in 3 weeks. All gone without a trace from the same restaurant. No bodies, no ransom demands, no logical explanation. Just empty chairs and cold pasta. The rain was coming down hard as she pulled up to Romano's Italian Bistro for the 4th time this week. Through the large front windows, she could see the dinner crowd winding down. Couples sharing dessert, families finishing their meals, servers clearing tables. Everything looked perfectly normal. But Sarah knew better than to trust appearances. "Tell me again what happened," she said to Marcus, the head waiter who'd called it in. They stood beside table 12, the window table that had become Romano's cursed spot. Marcus was a thin man in his 50s, with graying hair and nervous eyes that darted around the restaurant as he spoke. "Same as always, detective. They came in around 9:30, ordered the usual pasta for her, veal for him. They were laughing, talking about their anniversary. Seemed happy, you know?" Sarah walked around the table, examining the scene with practiced eyes. 2 wine glasses sat untouched, their contents still ruby red. The woman's linguine alfredo was half-eaten, fork abandoned mid-twirl. The man's veal marsala had been cut into neat pieces, but only a few bites were missing. "And then?" Sarah prompted. "I went to check on them around 10:15. Wanted to see if they needed anything else before we started closing. But when I got to the table..." Marcus gestured helplessly at the empty chairs. "Gone. Just gone." Sarah opened the woman's purse, which hung on the back of her chair like she'd just stepped away for a moment. Driver's license for Lisa Morrison, age 34. Credit cards, cash, car keys. Everything a person would need to get home. Everything a person would never abandon. The man's jacket was draped over his chair, wallet still in the inside pocket. David Morrison, 36, worked at an accounting firm downtown. His phone was on the table beside his plate, still charged, still connected to the restaurant's Wi-Fi. "The security cameras?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Marcus's face grew even more troubled. "That's where it gets really weird, detective. You need to see this." He led her through the bustling kitchen, past servers balancing plates and chefs calling out orders, to a small office in the back. The walls were covered with monitors showing different angles of the restaurant. Marcus sat down at the computer and pulled up the footage from earlier that evening. "Watch this," he said, clicking play. The timestamp showed 9:47 p.m. There were David and Lisa Morrison at table 12, just as Marcus had described. They looked like any other happy couple out for dinner. Lisa was gesturing animatedly while telling a story, her wedding ring catching the light from the candles on their table. David was leaning forward, completely absorbed in whatever she was saying, occasionally laughing and taking sips of wine. Sarah watched them order, watched the food arrive, watched them eat and talk like people do on any normal evening. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would explain their disappearance. Then, at exactly 10:23 p.m., something impossible happened. The security footage showed something that would make Sarah question everything she thought she knew about how the world worked. The camera focused on table 12 glitched. Not the whole screen, just the area around their table. For exactly 3 seconds, the image became static, like someone was jamming the signal with surgical precision. When the static cleared, David and Lisa Morrison were gone. But that wasn't the impossible part. "Rewind it," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "Play it again." Marcus rewound the footage. Same scene, same conversation, same moment of static. But this time Sarah was watching more carefully. "Look at their plates," Marcus said quietly. Before the static, 2 half-eaten meals, wine glasses full, napkins casually placed beside the plates. After the static, completely clean plates. Not just empty, spotless. As if they'd been licked clean. The wine glasses were empty too, though Sarah could have sworn she'd seen them full just moments before downstairs. "That's impossible," Sarah muttered, but even as she said it, she knew she was looking at proof that impossible things could happen. "There's more," Marcus said. His hands were shaking as he switched to another camera angle. "Watch the other diners." This camera showed the entire dining room from above. Sarah could see all the tables, all the customers enjoying their meals. But at the moment when table 12 glitched, something else happened. Every single person in the restaurant stopped eating at exactly the same time. Not gradually, not coincidentally. Simultaneously. Like someone had hit a pause button on the entire room. For those same 3 seconds of static, 43 people sat frozen with forks halfway to their mouths, glasses suspended in mid-sip, conversations halted mid-sentence. Then, when the static cleared, everyone resumed eating as if nothing had happened. Except David and Lisa Morrison were gone, and their plates were clean. Sarah's radio crackled, making both her and Marcus jump. "Detective Chen, we've got another one." Her partner Rodriguez's voice came through the static. "Address is 1247, Vine Street. Same situation as Romano's." Sarah's blood went cold. She knew that address. The location Rodriguez had just given her was impossible, and it meant this case was far worse than she'd imagined. 1247, Vine Street was Bella Vista, Romano's biggest competitor. The Italian restaurant directly across the street, with a perfect view of Romano's front windows. "I have to go," Sarah told Marcus, handing him her card. "Call me immediately if anything else happens. And I mean anything. A weird phone call, a customer acting strange, even if you just get a bad feeling. Call me." Marcus nodded, pocketing the card with trembling fingers. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in Bella Vista's dining room, staring at another impossible scene. The restaurant was nearly empty now, just a few late diners finishing dessert and coffee. But at the corner table nearest the window, the one with the perfect view of Romano's across the street, sat 2 empty chairs and the remnants of another interrupted meal. "Tell me exactly what happened," Sarah said to the server, a young woman named Kelly who looked like she'd seen a ghost. "They came in around 10:40, Kelly said, her voice shaky. "Asked specifically for that table. Said they wanted to watch the street while they ate. Ordered quickly salad and salmon for her, pasta puttanesca for him. They'd only been seated for maybe 10 minutes when..." "When what?" "I was in the kitchen getting bread for another table. When I came back, they were gone. Just like that. Left money on the table, exact change, down to the penny. But they couldn't have known how much the meal cost yet. They hadn't even gotten their entrees." Sarah examined the scene. Unlike at Romano's, these customers had left money behind, crisp bills laid out neatly beside their untouched appetizers. The exact amount of their check, including tax and a 15% tip. Calculated to the cent. "Did you see them leave?" "That's the thing," Kelly said. "I was only gone for maybe 30 seconds. There's no way they could have eaten their appetizers, calculated the exact bill, left money, and walked out without me seeing them. The kitchen door has a clear view of the front entrance." Sarah's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number: "Stop looking for them. They're exactly where they chose to be." She showed the message to Kelly, who went pale. "Who else has your number?" Kelly asked. "Barely anyone," Sarah said, her hands starting to shake. She called Rodriguez. "I need you to run a trace on this number. Priority 1. While she waited, Sarah walked to the window and looked across the street at Romano's. Through the large front windows, she could see Marcus clearing tables, preparing to close for the night. The window table, table 12, sat empty, but it had been reset with fresh linens and gleaming silverware, ready for tomorrow's customers. Her phone rang. Rodriguez. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this." What Rodriguez told her next would change everything she thought she understood about this case. "The trace came back," Rodriguez said. "That text message, it was sent from inside Romano's restaurant. Sent at exactly 11:47 p.m., 12 minutes ago." Sarah looked at her watch. 11:48 p.m. "That's impossible. I was just there." Marcus was closing up, getting ready to leave. There weren't any customers left. According to the cell tower data, the message originated from inside Romano's dining room. Specifically, from the area near the front windows. Sarah pressed her face to Bella Vista's window, staring across the street. Romano's looked dark now except for the security lights. She could see Marcus in the kitchen, turning off equipment and cleaning up. "Rodriguez, I need you to meet me at Romano's right now. Something's not right about any of this." "Already on my way. ETA 5 minutes. But as Sarah started to leave Bella Vista, she noticed something in the window's reflection that made her freeze. She was looking at herself, phone pressed to her ear, but in the reflection, Rodriguez was standing right behind her. She spun around. The restaurant was empty except for Kelly, who was in the kitchen washing dishes. Sarah looked back at the window reflection. Rodriguez was still there, but now he was walking away from her, toward the back of the restaurant. When Sarah turned around to follow the reflection, Rodriguez was gone, but what she found instead was far more terrifying. The restaurant was completely silent except for the sound of Kelly washing dishes in the kitchen. But according to the reflection, Rodriguez should be right here. "Kelly?" Sarah called out. No answer. Sarah walked toward the kitchen, her hand instinctively moving to her service weapon. The swinging doors were slightly open, and she could hear the sound of running water. She pushed through the doors and found Kelly standing at the industrial sink, her back to Sarah, washing the same plate over and over again. The dish was clearly clean, but Kelly kept scrubbing it with mechanical precision. "Kelly?" The woman didn't respond. Didn't even acknowledge that Sarah had spoken. Sarah walked around to see Kelly's face and nearly screamed. Kelly's eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, including what should have been the whites. And she was smiling while she scrubbed, but it wasn't a human smile. It was too wide, stretching her lips in ways that faces weren't meant to stretch. Sarah backed out of the kitchen, heart pounding. Her radio was dead silence when she tried to call for backup. Her phone showed no signal bars. She ran for the front door of Bella Vista, but when she reached for the handle, it wouldn't turn. The door was locked from the inside, but she hadn't heard anyone lock it. Through the window, she could see Romano's across the street. There were lights on inside, now warm, inviting dining room lights. And there were people inside. Lots of people. The restaurant looked busy, like it was in the middle of dinner service. But it was almost midnight. Sarah pressed her face to the glass for a better look. At the window table, table 12, she could see two people having dinner. A man and a woman, talking and laughing over their meal. It was David and Lisa Morrison. What Sarah saw next made her realize the horrible truth about Romano's last table. The Morrisons weren't just having dinner. They were having the exact same dinner she'd watched on the security footage. Lisa was gesturing animatedly while telling the same story. David was leaning forward with the same absorbed expression, laughing at the same moments. They were replaying their last meal in an endless loop. Sarah could see other familiar faces at other tables. The couple that had disappeared last week, Jennifer and Mark Hoffman. The elderly man who'd vanished 2 weeks ago, Robert Santangelo. They were all there, all having dinner, all trapped in the same moment that had been their last before disappearing. And in the corner booth, she saw Rodriguez. He was sitting alone, staring directly at her through the window. His eyes were the same black void she'd seen in Kelly's face. He raised his hand and waved at her, smiling that same too-wide smile. Sarah's reflection in the window waved back, though her actual hand remained at her side. She ran to her car, fumbling for the keys with trembling fingers. The engine turned over, but when she tried to back out of the parking spot, the car wouldn't move. she looked in her rearview mirror and saw that she was surrounded by people. Dozens of them, standing in perfect silence behind her car. They all had the same black eyes. They all wore the same impossible smile. Her phone suddenly burst to life with notifications. Text after text after text. "Welcome to the last table, Sarah. Your reservation has been confirmed. We've been waiting for you. The veal is excellent tonight. Don't be late for dinner." When Sarah looked at who was sending the messages, her heart stopped completely. All the messages were coming from her own phone number. According to her phone, she was texting herself. But her hands weren't on the keyboard. A tap on her driver's side window made her scream. Rodriguez was standing there, but this wasn't the Rodriguez she knew. His skin was pale, almost gray, and those black eyes seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Sarah," he said, his voice muffled by the glass but somehow perfectly clear. "You need to come inside. You're the only one left who remembers us." "Remembers who?" she whispered. "All of them. The people who disappeared. We didn't vanish, Sarah. We just stopped being real. Stopped existing in your world. But in Romano's, we still exist. We still have our dinner. We still have that last perfect moment before everything changed." Rodriguez pressed his palm against the window. Where his skin touched the glass, frost began to spread in delicate patterns. "But it's lonely, Sarah. We need someone who remembers. Someone who can bridge the gap between your world and ours. Every detective who investigates Romano's becomes that bridge." Sarah looked around her car. The people surrounding her weren't just random strangers. She recognized some of them now. Missing persons from other cases. People who'd vanished from other restaurants, other places, other times. All with the same black eyes, all smiling that terrible smile. Rodriguez's next words made Sarah understand the true horror of what Romano's really was. "Every detective who gets too close becomes the next reservation," Rodriguez said. "You think you're solving the case, Sarah, but you are the case. Romano's doesn't just take customers. It takes anyone who threatens to expose what it really is." Sarah looked down at her hands. They were becoming transparent. She could see the steering wheel through her palms. "The restaurant feeds on reality," Rodriguez continued, his breath fogging the window despite the warm night. "Every person who disappears gives it power to make itself more real, more permanent. And every investigator who gets too close becomes part of the menu." Sarah's arms were fading now. She could see her car's interior through her own body. "But there's a choice," Rodriguez said, and for a moment his voice sounded like the partner she'd known for 3 years. "Come inside willingly, and you keep your memories. Keep your sense of self. You get to have dinner with all of us, forever. Fight it, and you become just another empty chair. Another mystery for the next detective to solve." The people around her car began moving closer. She could see their faces clearly now, men, women, young, old, all united by those black eyes and knowing smiles. Some wore modern clothes, others looked like they'd stepped out of different decades entirely. "How long has this been going on?" Sarah asked. "Romano's opened in 1953, Rodriguez said. "It's been feeding ever since." Sarah had less than 60 seconds before she'd be completely gone from the real world. Through Romano's window, she could see all of them now. Dozens of missing people, all having dinner, all trapped in their final moments of normalcy. David Morrison was cutting his veal into the same precise pieces he'd cut 70 years ago. Lisa was reaching for her wine glass in the exact same graceful motion she'd made on their anniversary. The elderly man at table 4, Robert Santangelo, looked up from his soup and waved at Sarah through the window. His smile was different from the others. Sadder. More human. He mouthed words she couldn't hear. "I'm sorry." Sarah's legs were completely transparent now. In 30 seconds, she'd vanished from the real world entirely. But she noticed something the others hadn't mentioned. On the table next to the Morrisons sat a laptop computer. Still open. Still glowing. Still somehow connected to the internet. If she could just reach that laptop before she forgot who she was, before she became part of Romano's eternal dinner service, she might have one chance to warn someone. One chance to leave a message for the next detective who would inevitably come looking for answers. "Time's up, Sarah," Rodriguez said. "Choose." Sarah made her decision. She stepped out of the car, her translucent feet barely making contact with the asphalt, and walked toward Romano's front door. The crowd of black-eyed people parted to let her through, their smiles growing wider as she approached. The door opened before she reached it. Marcus stood there, but he looked different than he had earlier. Younger. Healthier. His eyes were still brown, not black, but there was something ancient in them. "Table for one?" he asked, his voice warm and welcoming. "Actually," Sarah said, surprised at how calm her voice sounded, "I'd like to sit with the Morrisons." Marcus's smile was genuinely pleased. "Of course. Right this way." As she walked through the dining room, Sarah felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. The restaurant was warm and inviting. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air. Conversations flowed naturally at every table, punctuated by laughter and the gentle clink of silverware against plates. It was, she realized, the perfect dinner service. Eternal and unchanging. Lisa Morrison looked up brightly as Sarah approached their table. "Oh, are you joining us? How wonderful. I'm Lisa, and this is my husband David. We're celebrating our anniversary." 10 years, David added, raising his wine glass. "Best decade of my life." Sarah sat down in the empty chair that had materialized beside their table. "Congratulations. I'm Sarah." A menu appeared in front of her, though she hadn't seen Marcus place it there. The offerings looked delicious, authentic Italian dishes prepared with care and attention. Her mouth began to water as she read the descriptions. But she forced herself to focus on the laptop sitting on the nearby table. She had maybe 10 seconds before she'd forget why any of this mattered. Before she'd become just another happy diner, trapped forever in this moment of perfect contentment. Sarah grabbed the laptop and began typing the most important message of her life. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory taking over as her conscious mind began to fade. She opened her email and started typing to the one person she thought might listen. "Captain Martinez, this is Detective Sarah Chen, badge number 4471. Romano's Italian Bistro is not what it appears to be. The missing persons cases are connected to something impossible. Don't send detectives to investigate. Don't send anyone who might get emotionally involved. Send a bomb squad. Blow up the building. Don't ask questions, don't try to understand. Just destroy it before." Marcus appeared beside her with a wine glass. "Pinot Grigio to start?" he asked pleasantly. Sarah's finger hovered over the send button, but her hand was becoming less solid by the second. She could barely maintain contact with the keyboard. "Having trouble?" asked the voice behind her. She turned and saw Rodriguez sliding into the fourth chair at their table. Writing emails can be tricky when you're becoming part of the furniture. Sarah looked at the email address she'd typed. Her heart sank. She'd made a terrible mistake with the email address, one that would doom anyone who tried to help her. The email was addressed to Detective Rodriguez at his work account. The same Rodriguez who was now sitting across from her with those black, empty eyes. "Nice try," Rodriguez said, gesturing for Marcus to pour him wine as well. "But everyone who might have helped you is already here. Captain Martinez retired 5 years ago. Lieutenant Foster transferred to another precinct. Sergeant Williams is sitting at table 8, having the salmon." Sarah looked around the restaurant and saw that he was right. Every superior officer she might have contacted, every colleague who knew about her investigation, every person who might have come looking for her, they were all here, all having dinner, all trapped in Romano's eternal service. "But you made one little mistake," Rodriguez continued, taking a sip of wine. "And that mistake is going to cost you whatever small chance you had of escape." Sarah's finger, now barely visible, managed to press the delete key instead of send. The email disappeared. Marcus reappeared with a plate of bruschetta. "Compliments of the house," he said. "While you're deciding on your entree." The bread smelled incredible. Sarah realized she was hungry, starving, actually. When was the last time she'd eaten? She couldn't remember. She reached for a piece of bruschetta, and as she bit into it, she felt the last of her transparency fade away. She was solid again. Real again. Part of Romano's world now. "Welcome," Lisa Morrison said warmly, "to the family." David raised his glass. "To new friends and eternal celebrations." Around the restaurant, every diner raised their glasses in unison. "To new friends and eternal celebrations." Sarah found herself smiling as she raised her own glass. The wine was excellent. The company was delightful. The atmosphere was perfect. She was about to drink when her phone buzzed one final time. The message that appeared on her screen changed everything. A reply to her email had somehow arrived, even though she deleted it. Message received and understood. The building will be destroyed in exactly 12 minutes. Get everyone out if you can. If you can't, I'm sorry. Captain Martinez, Bomb Disposal Unit. Rodriguez, who had been reaching for his wine, froze mid-motion. Martinez retired 5 years ago. Sarah's smile widened as she felt her detective instincts flooding back. Did he? Or did you just tell me that to keep me from trying to contact him? She stood up from the table, her mind clear for the first time since entering the restaurant. You see, Rodriguez, you made one little mistake too. You assumed I'd email my current captain. But Martinez wasn't just any captain. He was the first detective assigned to investigate Romanos, back in 1987. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every diner was staring at Sarah now. He spent 3 months on the case, she continued, backing toward the laptop. Got close enough to figure out what this place really was. But instead of becoming part of your eternal dinner party, he made a different choice. He transferred to bomb disposal and spent the next 38 years waiting for someone to send him the right message. Rodriguez lunged for her, but Sarah was already at the laptop, typing frantically. 12 minutes, Martinez. I'm inside with about 50 people. We're all already dead, aren't we? Just make sure this thing doesn't spread to other restaurants. She hit send just as Rodriguez's hands closed around her throat. Through the front windows, she could see flashing lights approaching. Not police cars this time. Bomb squad vehicles. Fire trucks. Emergency response units. Rodriguez's grip tightened. You don't understand. If you destroy Romanos, everyone trapped here dies. Permanently. No eternal dinner, no peaceful existence. Just nothing. Sarah looked around at all the faces staring at her. David and Lisa Morrison, holding hands across their anniversary table. The elderly man with his half-finished soup. Families with children who would never grow up, couples who would never grow old, all frozen in their last moments of happiness. Maybe, she said, her voice barely a whisper, that's what they've been waiting for. As the bomb squad surrounded Romanos, Sarah Chen made one final choice that would determine the fate of everyone trapped inside, but whether it would save them or destroy them forever remained to be seen as the timer hit 0.